All right. Welcome to this Thirsty Thursday edition of Liquid Lunch on Biz TV. I'm John Tobacco. You are not going to believe what had to happen this morning for me to get my son to his baseball practice. When we get to baseball practice, you got 18 kids, 16 kids, 3 coaches. They're on this huge field. No one else is there. And these miserable mother mutt cops come down and throw the kids off the field. So, needless to say, we had to move to another field, which made me late. Then I had to put my son's life and his friend's life in danger to race down Highland Boulevard to get here literally 1 minute ago. And we're going to talk about all the hypocrisy going on in the world today because you got little kids, 14-year-old kids who want to exercise, play ball. They can't play ball, but you got these miserable protesters, 10,000s of them, and they can all party in the streets. It's a summer of love. It's a block party, but the kids can't play baseball. How sick is that? But anyway, coming up after this, we're going to have one of my favorites, a guy who's been with us from the very beginning. Joe Pignone is going to be here with us. He's a Republican strategist. He's got some real serious views, and he wants to talk, and I want to talk, about why the Democrats are blocking President Trump and the Republicans' efforts to do a police reform bill. They're out there protesting in the streets because they want to defund the police. The po-po is no-no. And everything else. And here's the Republicans saying, here's some police reform. We're gonna incentivize cops to be better. We're gonna give more money for training. We're gonna outlaw chokeholds and special grabs. And there's no doubt about that every person in this country wants to see equal justice for all, okay? And when the president steps up to the plate, says he understands the voice of the people, and the Republicans deliver a bill, that's a start. It may not be everything, but Charles Schumer and company over in the Senate are doing all they can to prevent the Republicans from doing something, which apparently that's what Black Lives Matter wants. That's what Antifa wants, you know? And I was talking to my son's baseball coach at the end of practice, and I suggested to him that for the next practice, I'm going to get 18 signs made, okay? And it's going to be kids protesting for baseball. And apparently, if it's a protest, then you're okay. You could have thousands of people. You don't have to wear masks. You don't have to social distance. I got to bring my son to practice. His mother's got to sign 3 forms, 2 different pieces of paper, a copy of our driver's license. They got to have a mask on to be standing in a huge field. But yet protesters who are looting and burning down cities, throwing bricks at cops, and partying, doing drugs in the street. The other day in the autonomous zone in Seattle, 2 of the protesters in the free love zone got shot. So now they may break that up. I don't know. I may break up this whole studio today and go crazy. I certainly need a drink to cool down after all the craziness that's going on in this world. But it's going to heat up even more right after this when I'm joined by my good old friend, Joe Pignone, who's going to be here to talk to you about all the crazy hypocrisy in this world. You're watching Liquid Lunch on Biz TV. Quick break. Back at you right after this.
5, 4, 3, 2.
All righty, welcome back. Just getting myself in order here. It's in order to take a look at your portfolio. And as we come into this segment, the Dow is down up 62 points. So a little bit of a recovery there. I'm a little disheveled, as I mentioned, because I had a rough morning. But things are getting better. And things are going to get better for you right now because Republican strategist, great friend of Liquid Lunch, he's been with us literally from day one when the studio was a spare bedroom in my apartment. And now he's one of the hottest guys around. I mean, we got to beg him to come on Liquid Lunch these days. Republican strategist, philanthropist, business leader, Joe Pignone's with us. Joey, thanks a lot for making some time for us. I really appreciate it.
Glad to be here.
I was just talking in the open. I know you want to talk about it a little more, but you know, the Republicans try to come here and say, all right, here's a start. Here's a bill that's the start of police reform. And as much as the hollering and screaming and autonomous zones and all this other crap, the Democrats are blocking the bill. Why won't they let at least a first step happen?
Well, I mean, it's just apparent to anybody who's paying attention that the Democrats don't want justice. They want a new president. And they will sooner keel over and die before they let President Trump affix his signature to any type of landmark civil rights bill, unless they can't say into perpetuity that he was the most racist man that ever lived. So I think that's really what we're dealing with right now. I mean, the notion that they wouldn't allow this bill, which provides a framework for many of the changes that people on the left and people all across this country have been clamoring for when it comes to accountability in policing. It really speaks to the fact that they're not interested in true change. And it's sad because, again, as I've remarked before, if we can get a landmark civil rights bill that gives Black people public accommodations in the midst of an election in 1964, then certainly we should be able to get simple accountability for law enforcement in a 2020 America.
Yeah, Joe, it sure seems to me like many other things this Democratic Congress and this Democratic leadership has done. They scream and hoot and holler and yell about how they want all this stuff. And then when Trump says, let's come to the table, I remember this happened with infrastructure when he said, hey, I'll do an infrastructure bill. And then he called, Nancy Pelosi comes over to the White House, and what does she do? She insults him and then storms out of the meeting because they don't really want him to have any victories. And even if it's what they want, they still won't let him have that victory. And they're really hurting their own constituency in this case, if you ask me.
Well, look, I think, the old lesson in politics used to be that if you solved people's problems, they would reward you with their vote. And now it appears that politicians, and particularly Democrats, have discovered that if you actually don't solve problems, then you can use those problems as a wedge to divide the electorate and win elections. And I think that is what's happening right now. We see that progress is often delayed. We see that dreams are too often deferred because we have an obstructionist Democratic caucus who has zero interest in actually accountability for themselves and somehow wants to lay their burdens down at the feet of President Trump for all the things in many ways that they are standing in the way of legislatively.
Hey, Joe, it became the new hot craze a few years back where a lot of women to, feel better about themselves would start injecting, botulinum and Botox in their face and their eyes. And you see these women walking around with these big giant lips. The problem with a lot of that stuff is after like 2 or 3 months, it starts to dissolve and then they got to go in for another injection, right? Yep. Isn't a lot of the stuff that these liberals are screaming and yelling about, isn't this like cosmetics? Don't we really need to get down to some systemic foundational changes?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is what I've called this, Democrats' plastic surgery solutions for racial harmony in America. That's really what we're dealing with right now. We have, individuals who, they want to tear down statues, even though half the people with the ropes in their hands have to run to Wikipedia to figure out whether they're supposed to be outraged or not. They want to get rid of everyone from Mrs. Buttersworth to Aunt Jemima. And none of those things actually does a damn thing to improve the outcomes for the communities they claim they so desperately want to help. So, look, I think that there is something to be said about the fact that, no, we should not be commemorating people like Edmund Pettus in a 2020 America, that maybe we shouldn't have Robert E. Lee statues all over the place. But the notion that we're going to run from park to park trying to tear down statues while we've got Black and brown children trapped in failing public schools simply because of the color of their skin and Democrats' desire to capitulate to teachers' unions, that has a greater impact on people's everyday living than anything the Democrats are proposing. And again, the fact that they would stand in the way, akin to George Wallace standing in the schoolhouse doorway saying segregation now, segregation forever, and prevent a landmark bill on police reform speaks volumes.
Joe, Joe Biden has been suffering from hoof and mouth disease for the last 25 years. Unfortunately, it continues to plague him. Just about a month ago on the Breakfast Club with Charlemagne the God, he said, if you're not sure if you're voting for me or Trump, you ain't black. So I wanted to ask you, as a good friend and a black man, are you still black?
Last I checked, I was.
That's what I'm thinking. But
I mean, here's the issue, right? Which is, why what the Democrats have done in many ways is so destructive. Because what they don't seem to understand is that if you're talking about police reform, when I get pulled over by the police, they don't ask me, license, registration, and voter ID card, right? They don't care about the letter next to my name on my voter registration card. I think if you're talking about the issues that people of color have dealt with in this country, I spoke, last week about, the fact that, 11 years old, having to, wake up at 7 a.m. on a Saturday, spend my, the entirety of my allowance to go get paint from the hardware store so that I could paint over, some person painting the N-word on our fence before my mother woke up. Those are the stories that people deal with on a regular basis. Yeah. It doesn't stop me from being here talking to you. Doesn't stop me from being able to become successful in the world. But let's not also pretend that those traumas are not silent passengers in people's lives.
You're right. When you say, hey, when you get pulled over, they don't ask you for your voter ID card. But we do know that there is an institutionalized thinking in law enforcement that, hey, if there's a black guy in a white neighborhood, maybe we should pull him over. And those are the conversations that we have to have, that it's just not about the driver of the car. Give us a reason. And those are the ills that have been built upon. And I wish someone, you, some other folks, that could come forward and find a thoughtful counterparty on the other side and say, let's get to the table and talk about the real stuff. Let's get to the meat and potatoes. I think most of America was united that this cop should be locked up, tried, and fried. We were all on the same page, and then Antifa hijacked it.
You have all these radicalists who yell about white privilege and yet took it upon themselves to literally thwart a movement for their own political needs. So that's just the sad reality of where we are today. I think, again, as far as making sure that we have a conversation as a nation, I think we can still have that conversation. But we need to get over the silliness. We need to stop talking about Gone with the Wind, and maybe talk about the fact that, hey, Governor Cuomo is talking about de-escalation with police. Meanwhile, he's authorizing people to pull over cars for the simple crime of having an out-of-state license plate because he wants to quarantine people for 14 days. I mean, who do you think they're going to start pulling over? So this is the type of lunacy that we're dealing with right now, where Democrats are talking out of both sides of their mouth in the interest of political gains, and they have zero idea for the actual consequences and the impacts that it has on everyday lives for people.
All right, Joey Pignon, we got to leave it there. Thank you very much, brother. We got to have you back soon. Thank you. You're the best. You the man.
Talk soon.
You're the man and the woman for watching Liquid Lunch. We're going to take a quick break right here. We're going to come back right after this with Catherine Gell to talk about breaking partisan gridlock. Welcome back, folks.
I've been taking my makeup off every day with the coronavirus wipes. I'm still corona free.
Didn't even wipe your fake tan off?
Well, that's because that's not a fake tan. That's a real tan.
Aha! Welcome back. Okay, now I'm settling in. Let me tell you, that guy Joe Pignon, when we started this show over a year ago, May 13th, 2019, he was, I think, on the first day or the second day of the show. He's never stopped coming back. He's got bigger and better than ever. And the guy is a sound, rational guy. And his voice means a lot. He thinks about things well. Today's a Thirsty Thursday. And I have quite the day in front of me today. Number one, last year I was making fun of some of my friends for drinking these things, these White Claws. Like my buddy Brant, my son's godfather, I used to refer to him in a feminine way for drinking these club soda drinks. But I've actually changed my mind on them. And the White Claw, I have a serious golf match today after the show. And me and my partner Fitzy and all the boys at TP, ICAP, or whatever they call it over there now. But Fitzy and I, we're undefeated in 2019 as a team, and today we will continue steamrolling our 2020 opponents when we take down Mikey the Pizza Man Burke and Danny Trash Vaccaro. So I'm going to drink White Claws to stay easy so I don't get too toasted before the match. But crack one open with me. Try it out. And let me tell you, anything black cherry to me is delicious. Lemonade. Cool, refreshing drink. I've been talking about this all week, but I got to keep saying it. I continue to mourn the loss of a number of members of our food family. I have this, an ode to Aunt Jemima, right on my desk still. The Indian on the Land O'Lakes butter, she's gone. She's in my fridge. I'm keeping her on ice for as long as possible to memorialize her. Uncle Ben. Everybody loves Uncle Ben's rice. Uncle Ben's gone. So we lost our Aunt Jemima. We lost our Uncle Ben. We lost the lady from the Land O'Lakes. And Eskimo pies are gone too. So if you care about Eskimos like I do, they were the indigenous people of our land. Eskimos are gone, okay, and they are our forefathers basically. And I continue to keep this right here close to me because I am half Irish, as I've noted before. Many people think, oh, Johnny T, Johnny Tobacco, he's an Italian guy and everything else. Very proud that I'm half Irish. Okay, both my grandmothers were half Irish. My one grandmother, Mary Elizabeth Bratt, my God, if I didn't say I was Irish, she would have hit me over the head with a baseball bat. But I'm afraid that they may come for the little Lucky Charms guy, the leprechaun. And these things are magically delicious. And by the way, I just found these particular ones, which you probably don't even know about yet. These are the Frosted Flakes with the Lucky Charms in it. So this is like cereal gold right here. And if they go after the Lucky Charms guy, that may be my breaking point. I got to tell you. And my buddy Scott Lebedo, a famous conservative artist, is vowing to chain himself to the Columbus statue, looking over Central Park in Midtown. And I'll tell you what, I am Italian also. And many young men of Italian heritage have always looked up to Christopher Columbus like, hey, that's somebody that's a symbol for us. We didn't get into the asterisks and the fine print on whether he had slaves on his boats or anything like that. We knew that a man of Italian nation of origin discovered America. So, I mean, God forbid these mutts from Black Lives Matter figure out that Giovanni di Verrazzano has a bridge named after him. They may come down and try to pull down the Verrazzano Bridge on top of it if they find out that Verrazzano had some slaves or had indigenous people living on. But anyway, they're going after white presidents now. Teddy Roosevelt, gone. And also one of the guys from Black Lives Matter the other day said that we got to tear down all the Jesus statues. So, you know the old saying, first, they come for the socialists, then they come for the communists, then they come for the trade unionists, and then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak up for me. And it's happening now. They're coming for everything. I'm going to show you a clip a little later on in the show of one of these Antifa folks who was on Fox News last night and said, BLM folks, same thing. They're all mashed into one now. He's actually, I'm looking at it because I want to understand exactly what he's saying, but he actually said, if they don't meet our demands, then we will burn this whole thing down. And to me, it sure sounds like what they're saying is, if it's like a terrorist, you know what I mean? It's like a kidnap situation. We want everything. We want to loot stores. We want to get paid for sitting home and doing nothing. We want to break all the social distancing rules. We want to gather in packs of 10,000. We want to light cop cars on fire. We want to smash cops over the head with bricks. We want to paint streets. Black Lives Matter. And if you don't listen to everything we want, we're going to burn this motherfucker down. And that's basically what they're saying. And to me, they're bordering right on national security when leaders of what I deem a terrorist organization. I had John Guandolo on the other day, former FBI expert, former military paratrooper, counterterrorism expert. He said that the Black Lives Antifa people are acting exactly like ISIS. So we may have to name these guys a terrorist organization, and then send in SEAL Team 6 to start taking out some of the leaders. And then sometimes, you know what they say, you cut off the head of the snake. I don't know. I'm losing it. I'm going to take a sip here, do a little White Claw on this break. Catherine Gell is going to join us right after this, talk to us about how to break the partisan gridlock in Congress.
Most financially successful people own assets that make them money while they sleep. They usually own real estate, vehicles, intellectual property, equipment, and more. These assets make passive income through leases, subscriptions, royalties, and fees that don't require time, energy, or attention. Your assets do the work, and you collect the check. So what kind of asset should you buy? The most valuable companies in the world, like Amazon, Google, and Apple, all have the same thing in common. They make a majority of their revenue from data technology assets, storing, collecting, processing, and providing data. It's all about the data. What if you could own data tech assets with a low upfront cost? Introducing Apex, a proprietary technology built to process and mine data and render artificial intelligence and 3D gaming at exceptionally high rates. Apex Tech has partnered with SafeTech, a subsidiary of a publicly traded company called InvestView. SafeTech's business model leverages Apex technology to disrupt the multi-trillion-dollar data tech industry, giving you the competitive advantage. SafeTech's growth strategy is to capture a significant share of the market. SafeTech will enter into a 60-month lease with owners of Apex Systems. Why would they do that? Why not just buy all the equipment themselves? The same reason most companies lease instead of own: to scale quickly without the upfront costs and for the tax benefits. So how do you get started? You purchase an Apex system. Then you can lease it to SafeTech for 60 months at a rate of $500 per month. That's a total of $30,000 paid to you over the life of the lease. So what's your responsibility besides purchasing the Apex system? Nothing. During the lease, SafeTech is responsible for any maintenance costs to keep things running for you. Just collect a check every month for the next 60 months. This tremendous financial opportunity positions you to follow the strategies of the financially successful. You can leverage data technology to produce passive income that generates revenue without your time, energy, or effort. This is what is meant by creating multiple streams of income. But the opportunity to participate will not last forever. If this concept fits your financial goals, take action today while you still have the chance.
For more Liquid Lunch, head over to YouTube, do a search for Liquid Lunch TV, and hit that subscribe button.
All right, welcome back. Kicking off hour 2 of a Thirsty Thursday. Man, I'm telling you, we just breezed right through this week. I mean, it's almost Friday, and tomorrow it'll be a Freaky Friday, I'm sure of that. And I have a couple of ideas for those of you who were watching the end of the show yesterday. You know I'm a little hard on my producer, Nico, from time to time, pretty much every day. You know, every so often, or, you know, when you push somebody past the breaking point, they got to get a little revenge. And if you're watching yesterday, I tried to pull off a little trick of TV Technicolor magic and do my closing pull side. And I guess, you know, Nico had enough, and unbeknownst to me, came charging outside and threw me in the pool. So he's out of the room right now, but here's what I'm planning. I was going to tell him tomorrow to bring his bathing suit. And after the show, we'd have a little pizza party. And then when he goes in the pool, I was going to throw a toaster in there. Because he did not care for 1 minute that I had an electronic device in my hand. I had a microphone in my hand. And if that thing had a little more juice in it, it could have electrocuted the whole pool. He could have fried me, and he didn't even care. Thank God I didn't have my phone in my pocket, because then I would have really fired him. And then Jess called me like 17 times last night begging me to not fire him, because I fired him on the spot. And then Jess called me, oh, no, don't do that. So during tomorrow's show, if you see me with a toaster in hand, shield the children's eyes, because we may just make a little Nico stew tomorrow. And the White Claws are kicking in for hour 2. No, so, Nico, this guy Joe Biden, we've been tracking him for a while. There's this story about how he said, he doesn't know anything about General Flynn. He didn't know he had nothing to do with the investigation. What do we know now, as of yesterday? Joe Biden may have personally raised the idea to investigate Michael Flynn. So here's Joe Biden, who said on multiple media outlets that he had nothing to do with the Flynn investigation, knew nothing about it, when in fact it now comes out that in Peter Strzok, disgraced Deputy FBI Director Peter Strzok, in his handwritten notes, it says VP, Vice President, Logan Act. So, in fact, Joe Biden, who says he didn't have anything to do with it, Peter Strzok's own notes say that the Vice President himself suggested they use the Logan Act to go after Mike Flynn. And here's what he said on multiple media channels, but here's just one of them. Take a look.
Former Senate colleague Charles Grassley has added that Flynn was entrapped and asked on the Senate floor, what did Obama and Biden know? When did they know it? So what did you know about those moves to investigate Michael Flynn, and was there anything improper done?
I know nothing about those moves to investigate Michael Flynn, number one. Number two.
1 minute, 37 seconds later.
I do want to press that. You say you didn't know anything about it, but you were reported to be at a January 5th, 2017 meeting where you and the president were briefed on the FBI's plan to question Michael Flynn over those conversations he had with the Russian ambassador Kislyak.
No, I thought you asked me whether or not I had anything to do with him being prosecuted.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I was aware that they asked for an investigation, but that's all I know about it, and I don't think anything else.
Okay, well, let's roll the tape on that. Oh, sure, okay.
I know nothing about those moves to investigate Michael Flynn, number one. Number two. No, I thought you asked me whether or not I had anything to do with him being prosecuted.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I was aware that they asked for an investigation, but that's all I know about it.
I thought you said I'm a rice spider. I mean, can the guy, can he tap dance anymore? We'll keep our eye on this breaking story. We'll bring you all the news you need to know. We'll come back right after this with our own very presidential historian, David Eisenbach, right after this. Boom. Welcome back. Just breezing through hour 2 now. And, every week we try really hard, at least I try really hard with my team, Nico, Jess, my managing editor, Frank Morano, to bring a diversified group of guests to you. And even though I have my own personal opinions, I support the president. I'm a registered independent, so I'm socially liberal, I'm fiscally conservative. So I'd like to have a broad base of people and discussions. If you wonder why we go from a food executive to a country singer, it's because I like having diversified ideas shared on my show. And one of the things that I started from day one on this show was a Mix It Up segment where we bring on a Democrat and a Republican. I throw out the topics. I call it the Mix It Up, where they go back and forth. And all I ask of the guests is that they have thoughtful conversation. They don't engage in personal attacks. And at the end, no matter what happens, we had a thoughtful conversation, we shake hands, and we part friends. We have made so many friends who are typically on the opposite ends of the spectrum through this show, and now Democrats and Republicans are friends. So we're doing our part on uniting Democrats and Republicans, but every so often I got to peel one of those pairings apart because, on special subjects. And I asked David Eisenbach to do a little double duty for us this week. He was on yesterday against Jaden Horan in a Mix It Up. And David Eisenbach is a historian. He is a Columbia University professor. He was also the Democratic candidate for New York City public advocate. And Dave, thanks for giving us a double duty this week. I really appreciate it. But I want to do a little one-on-one time with you to talk about what we only got into briefly yesterday. Nancy Pelosi had a number of incumbents that got smacked around in the primaries. Talk to us about what the big ones were, and then let's talk more about what it really means.
Yeah, so let's walk through the map. And it wasn't just Nancy Pelosi, it was the Democratic establishment and Chuck Schumer, who also got knocked around. Let's go to Kentucky, where the anti-establishment Charles Booker looks like he's going to overtake Amy McGrath, who is the Chuck Schumer-supported candidate for the Democratic primary to face off against Mitch McConnell. Schumer helped her raise $40 million, and that wasn't enough. Because basically Democrats are sick of the same old Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, go along to get along kind of move, and they want something much newer. Got it.
So, there was all this talk about, when Nancy Pelosi came in, that, there was going to be these holdouts who weren't going to vote for Pelosi. One of them's right here in Staten Island, New York, freshman Congressman Max Rose, in the Staten Island, Brooklyn district. And he wrote an op-ed here in our local paper where he said he wasn't for impeachment and it's only going to divide our country and it's not going to help anymore. It's not going to help us with roads. It's not going to help us with military. Impeachment is no good. And Nancy Pelosi sure seems to have a lock on these people, because not 3 weeks later he went down to Washington and voted for impeachment. So, do you think people on the Pelosi train have a problem going into this November election?
Okay, well, let's get to New York and what happened on Tuesday in New York City. We had Mondaire Jones, who has won Nita Lowey's seat in the Bronx, along with Jamal Bowen, who has defeated, looks like he's going to have defeated, Elliot Engel, also in Westchester in the Bronx. Suraj Patel is less than 600 votes behind Carol Maloney to represent the East Side, parts of Queens, and parts of Brooklyn. All three candidates have pledged that they will not vote for Pelosi as leader or speaker. So you now have high-profile Democrats saying they are not going to support her, and it will just take whether the question is, will a House Democrat stand up and say, okay, I have an alternative way of leading our Democratic majority or minority? That'll be the question, because there will be some votes behind that candidate.
Dave, I want to take you into another place of your great subject matter expertise. You're a presidential historian. How weird is it that they're pulling down the statue of Teddy Roosevelt? Like, this is a white Democratic president. Was he a slave owner? Did he enslave indigenous people? What is it about this white president that is so alarming?
One thing I will say about Teddy Roosevelt is he welcomed Booker T. Washington into the White House, gave him a public meeting. Now, in retrospect, we look at that and we impose our sensibility today. But at the turn of the century, that was a huge signal that Teddy Roosevelt was putting out there in favor of this civil rights leader. So Teddy Roosevelt is not the enemy. Even stranger, out in San Francisco, protesters tore down a statue of Ulysses S. Grant. Okay, the five-star general that led the Union Army to defeat the Confederacy and end the days of slavery in America. So we are losing, and I think that many of these protesters have no sense of the history that they are destroying here.
Dave, thanks for doing some double duty for us, and we got to have Nico. We got to have David on by himself more too. The guy's too good. He's like a triple threat, Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it, bro. We're going to take a quick break right here. I am going to come back after this and wow and amaze you with some news of the day right after this.
5, 4, 3, 2.
Danino's, the arugula pie. White arugula pie with fresh grated Parmesan. This is the margarita pie. It's beauty. This is the clam pie. Danino's is famous for the clam pie. Delicious. It's like after place. So
10, 9, 8,
Okay, I'm reloaded. Say hello. My little friend.
It's not like we're on air or anything. No big deal. Can you turn on the mic, please?
All right, welcome back. Buzzing right through the hour here. With the show flying by today. What a show we got going for you. And, I did a little expose last week where I am investigating whether or not Governor Andrew Cuomo right here in New York and other blue state governors had a devious plan, especially in New York, where they sent over 6,000 senior citizens back to nursing homes with COVID, okay? And I did a little deeper look at it, and I don't know if you realize this, but almost every blue state in the country has an underfunded pension system. And I did some math on it, and between what New York State has to contribute to Medicaid and what the state government's liabilities are to many public employees in their retirement system, there's a good chance that about $6 billion was saved to plug the hole in the New York State pension system by sending these poor old people back to their nursing homes. And healthcare continues to be a place where we have out-of-control costs, we have out-of-control demands by both sides, and it continues to be one of the biggest costs to our economy. Many of you may not know this, but those folks who died from COVID, who were 70 or 72, they were probably going to get paid about another 10 years on their pension. All that money goes back into government coffers. And at the same time, on the Medicaid side, about 50% of your lifetime medical costs are borne in your last 2 years of life. So there is an argument to be made that killing off a whole bunch of senior citizens saves the state a lot of money. We'll look into that a little more. But someone who knows the medical game inside and out, he's joined us before, a great guest. Dr. Dennis Durrell joins us right now. He's a physician. He's a practicing hospitalist. And more importantly, he's the author of your healthcare playbook, Winning the Game of Modern Medicine. Doc, I don't know if you heard my, informal hypothesis, but it sure seems to me that there could have been some incentive to our state government to put seniors' lives in danger by sending them back to nursing homes. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me back. Number one, wow, I hope that's certainly not the case. I will say this. You've drawn the parallel. My take on this is you absolutely should not be sending anyone back to a nursing home that's not proven negative from COVID. I mean, we have doctors in my practice across in 19 states, 2,000 doctors. I mean, we are not sending anyone back until we have negative. In fact, sometimes 2 negatives, as you know, because the testing can be inconsistent. So I think it's unconscionable to send people back to nursing homes, given the data. We know the data. When you get one person in a nursing home that has it, it spreads. We know that. We've seen that on cruise ships. We've seen it in nursing homes. I mean, I think it's pretty clear. And we need to set up, what they've done in Massachusetts. You've set up facilities that are COVID-only facilities that are like this, and that's what we have to do.
So let me just point this out to you, and I'm not asking you to go along with my theory. I think there's got to be something more to just typical common sense. If we know this thing kills old people and we know it's highly transmittive, then why send someone with it back into a home full of old people, right? But at the same time, right? Andrew Cuomo was screaming and yelling that we need more beds, we don't have enough beds, and that's why he said he sent people back to the nursing homes. Trump, I think, actually called his bluff and sent the big Navy ship Hospitality up here. And it turns out that not one person ever went on that Navy ship, but yet he sent thousands of people back to the nursing homes. So it doesn't measure, it's counterintuitive to me.
Yeah, I agree. I was struck by the fact that that ship was not used, and it was intended to be used for non-COVID patients, allegedly, to free up beds. But, I mean, if it were me, I would have maybe sent patients there that were going to go to a nursing home but weren't quite ready to go back to their normal setting. And that would have been, I think, a decent place to do it. So I might have repurposed that ship, and I certainly wouldn't have sent people to nursing homes. I mean, they are the majority of the people that are dying from COVID.
No doubt. And Doc, I know we got to get to the European Union, but I want to just ask you one other thing. I've been doing a lot of reading on the COVID and how it was treated. And I read a very interesting article where a doctor, I think he was an Italian doctor, he was talking about how the COVID, when it was in the lungs, it was inflaming the inner walls. And when the inner walls of the lungs get inflamed and get thicker, it takes away area inside the lungs. So there was less air, less room for air. And people who didn't know how to short breathe would get very nervous and anxiety. And this doctor had posited that the absolute worst thing you can do to these people is put a ventilator on them and force more air into their lungs because there's not enough room for more air in their lungs. And it seems that 80% of the people that went on respirators died. You think the respirators could have had a negative effect or you know, a multiplying effect on this thing?
Well, let's break that down in a couple ways. So I agree with you and this physician that it is the virus is driving an immune response, and that immune response, although it's meant to kill the virus, is also attacking our body. And it's doing it in the little air sacs and in the little blood vessels that are in our lungs. So he is right. They're filling up with fluid and they're being destroyed. The architecture of the lung is being destroyed. So agree with that. That's why a study that came out last week, we've been doing this since day one. If you treat patients with steroids, dexamethasone, it actually reduced the chance of death by 1/3 in patients on ventilators. So I will agree that that's part of the problem. I will agree that we now have a solution that seems to help. It's not 100%, but it's certainly helping.
All right, in our final couple of minutes here, now you know, we're hearing about spikes all across the country. I kind of me personally, I attribute that to, of course, there's more testing, so we're going to see more cases. In the European Union, they're talking about reopening borders. They're saying Americans are not welcome, and they're all racing now to agree on who can visit July 1. Does it make sense for anybody from the U.S. to get into international travel right now?
No. I mean, first of all, I don't blame the Europeans. Why? We wanted to cut off travel for them to our country. Well, I can't blame them. Number two, if you're going to go there on vacation, you're not going to do 14 days of quarantine before you do your vacation. You're going to have to be there for 30 days. So it's just not practical right now. And we weren't even doing the kind of screening we needed to do from Spain, from Italy into New York when we should have shut that down sooner. So look, I don't begrudge what they're doing. We have the most number of cases in the world. We're at high risk. It just doesn't make sense to travel right now, in my opinion, over to Europe.
Got it. And by the way, from someone like myself who's lived abroad, the last thing you want to do is get caught in some European country with American health insurance and then get admitted to the hospital. Your prospects are probably worse. Let's stay close to home where we have some of the best hospital systems around. Hey, Doc, thank you so much. We got to have you back soon. You're the man. Thanks for joining us.
Take care. Anytime. Bye,
That's
John.
right. That's Dr. Dennis Durrell. He's the author of Your Healthcare Playbook, Winning the Game of Modern Medicine. I am going to take a short break here. I am going to slug down the rest of this White Claw on this commercial break. I'm going to talk to the Facebook audience. If you're watching on Biz TV and you want to hear some real zaniness that goes on behind the scenes during the commercials, you can always tune into Facebook at Liquid Lunch TV. And we're even working with our boss, Scott Miller, over at Biz TV on maybe putting some radio out for you. So all that and more right after this. Welcome back, folks.
I've been taking my makeup off every day with the coronavirus wipes.
How's it working?
I'm still corona free.
Didn't even wipe your fake tan off.
Well, that's because that's not a fake tan. That's a real tan.
This November, and Democrats don't want to see it, at least establishment ones. It seems like they're trying to sort of
Against weed, but for guns, right? There's all these different, and to me the palette is the middle, is different shades of purple, and that's who's going to decide this election. It's Bernie.
Wine's kicking in.
There you go.
It's just gonna work out after this.
30 seconds.
Right.
Your cue is you look for like 2 now. When I say 2 minutes left in the segment, you're filming the next guy up.
You know what I'm saying? That I spew out.
3, 2, 1, bump. Quiet on set, please.
For more Liquid Lunch, head over to YouTube, do a search for Liquid Lunch TV, and hit that subscribe button.
Every so often, we're in the Corona Bunker Studios here in my house in Staten Island, New York, and the ice cream man comes down the street, sometimes just after 2, and I often offer to buy Jess and Nico a cone or shake or something. Nico's watching his figure, so the ice cream man came a little early today, and I thought, in consideration of everything that's going on out there with the racial inharmony and the division in the country, I think I did my part today by ordering a vanilla and chocolate mix to show unity amongst everyone. So I got the double cone with the mix, a little ebony and ivory. You know, it means something. You know, I typically like chocolate with chocolate sprinkles. So you got a double chocolate with the chocolate dip and the chocolate sprinkles on top. But today, to try to stand in solidarity for racial unity and equality, I got the vanilla chocolate mix double cone. Now, we did not mix it up today. We didn't have a Democrat and a Republican, but David Eisenbach did join us. He's a professor at Columbia University, and he's also a presidential historian. We talked about Teddy Roosevelt. This is a white president who did so many great things, but apparently that's a problem. And Janet's on there, Janet Mederick. Janet, I met one of George Santos's good friends, Erin, yesterday. She's going to come on the show and talk about animal farming. She's like a big vegan and stuff. She says there's a big story I need to know about. And I told her I need George Santos back on the show again, so that hopefully that's coming. Leanne Colacurto is there, Susan Rochester Zucconi. All our friends are always following us. They're there. Amal's there. Thank you for your note this morning about the Dr. Huber is there, my man Johnny Huber. Speaking of presidents, this just in, okay, and you know, our president, when he tweets, Jess just mentioned to me this statement, go big or go home. The president goes big or go home all the time. But he just tweeted this out, okay? Breaking news. I'm told that New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio wants to paint the fabled and beautiful Fifth Avenue right in front of Trump Tower and Tiffany with a big yellow Black Lives Matter sign. Quotes, pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon, referring to killing police is what they're chanting. New York City police are furious. So the president is going big or go home. He's calling him out on it. You know, they make up these wacko chants. You know, Al Sharpton's famous for this. Hey, hey, ho, ho. NYPD's got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho. You know, they always come up with these cute little chants that they get everybody going on. Pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon. And by the way, I'm also told by Mr. Softy, my ice cream man, who's a fine young man, works his butt off. He's out there every day sitting in front of my house with that crazy song going. He tells me that they've been contacted by numerous racial groups and told that the song, we all know the song. Apparently there's some racist lyrics in Mr. Softy's music track on the trucks. And he told me that he has to order a new song. And we, you know, like we have to reprogram ourselves to know. I'm like Pavlov's dog. I hear that song from like 2 miles away and I'm trying to track down a snow cone or a double cone or something out there. But even add Mr. Softy to the list of members of our food family who have been seriously damaged or killed by this new movement for racial unity. Mr. Softy's song, Gone, like Gone with the Wind. Great news out of the Supreme Court today. Now, Trump was tweeting last week how, you know, maybe the Supreme Court doesn't like him anymore because they voted against a couple of measures that he was for. There's a headline out now, Supreme Court eases path to deport asylum seekers, and the court rules that expedited removal processes comply with the Constitution, and non-citizens apprehended near the border can be removed without court review, which that's a huge win, okay? Not nearly as big a win as the ice cream man showing up right before I'm about to go play golf, because, I mean, if you're going to have a double bacon cheese for breakfast, 4 black cherry White Claws during lunch, and then, you know, a vanilla chocolate twist double cone, I'm not that healthy, folks, so who knows how long I can make it. But I will tell you this. This is great news for our president, because a lot of these people say they're seeking asylum. They're really not in danger in their home country. They're just trying to get into the U.S. And under Barack Obama's administration with the catch and release program, they give them a ticket, release them into the U.S. and say, come back for court in a couple of months. Those people never show up for their return date. And they're fugitives, but we don't have enough, you know, ICE agents to go out there and track them all down. This is a wonderful development, and the Supreme Court has time and time stood along with our president on immigration law. And you know what? If you're trying to hop my fence to get into my backyard, I have every right to grab you by the shirt collar and the back of your pants and toss you back from where you came from. So enough of this process. People who are American citizens have the right to due process, not criminal aliens who are breaking into our country. They don't get afforded the same rights and freedoms that us lowly citizens get. It's just bullcrap. And thank God the Supreme Court, while they shot down the president on a couple things recently, I agree with them on the transgender stuff. You can't be firing people because they're gay or transgender. And the court made a great decision there. And now the court made another great decision. You're breaking into the country, you're a criminal, you're illegal, the country can throw you out. And they made it a lot easier to deport people. So that's good news. Lots of good news today. The good news for all of us is that tomorrow's Friday, and we all love a TGIF. And we're going to wrap up the week in spectacular fashion. I am now going to head to the golf. I'm going to be right back here tomorrow, same bat time, same bat channel, more Liquid Lunch.